Hi and welcome to the Tuesday edition of Bitrix24 Live. My name's Andy and I'm the support manager here at Gold Partners Interface. So today's session we're going to be looking at our second part of the remote working series to look at workgroup collaboration. So that's what this session is going to focus around. It's going to have a look at a number of different areas with regards to workgroups. And I'll cover that in a moment. So just a little bit about us. We are Interface. As I mentioned, we're gold partners of Bitrix24. We have offices in the US, in the UK, and also in Dubai. And we offer a whole range of different services. So from your pre-sales support, so should you be interested in any areas of Bitrix or purchasing Bitrix for your business, then we can offer one-to-one demonstrations online and guide you through any of the different areas on Bitrix to make sure that it's a good fit for your business. We also offer, obviously, licensing for all of the different Bitrix24 products, and we also offer post support. So it's a premium level of support, and that includes ticketing support and also telephone support as well. So I think we're one of the only partners to be able to do that. So please do get in touch if you do have any questions with regards to Bitrix at all. So as I mentioned, in this session we are going to look predominantly at workgroup collaboration. So do please put your questions in the box on YouTube and I can answer them as we go along. But the checkpoints that we're going to cover today are essentially the different types of work groups that Bitrix has to offer. So we have public, private, and also project groups. We're not going to necessarily be concentrating really on project groups today. Our third session for the remote working series is going to be next week on projects. But we will have a look at the different types of work groups available on Bitrix24. So we'll have a look at those and then we'll have a look at the differences between making work groups public and private, and then we'll have a look at all the different features of collaboration inside a particular work group, and that includes the activity stream, chat communication tools, tasks, documentation, so we can store documents, calendars, and we'll have a look at the knowledge base as well. So if we jump into Bitrix, we have a cloud solution here, and all the features that I cover today are going to be available on the free version of Bitrix through to the professional cloud and also the on-premise solution as well. So the starting point of this session is going to be obviously inside the workgroup menu link on the left hand side here. Now, a workgroup inside Bitrix is essentially its own confined workspace in Bitrix. So we'll have a look at all the features that you can have inside a particular workgroup. But we've seen many uses of work groups. So a good one, especially if you're remote working at the moment, is you can use work groups for departments. So you can create a work group for, let's say, the marketing department and invite every member of the marketing team into that work group. And you can have your own space within Bitrix to communicate with one another through the workgroup chat, through the workgroup activity stream, and you can also store assets for such departments like the marketing in its own workgroup document space. And that's a good use of a work group inside Bitrix. We also have people create work groups for events. So if you've got an up-and-coming event, whether it be online or once all the virus is over, then obviously you're going to have events that you need to plan for, exhibitions, conferences. We have people that create a lot of work groups for those kinds of events, because again, you can use the tools inside these groups to store documents, to use its own calendar, and only the people inside these groups are ever going to get notified of what is happening inside them. So I think maybe we should start off by creating a group. So we can click into the button at the top right hand corner here. And what that gives us, it gives us a number of different options that we can create a work group for. So an open work group is essentially a work group that anybody can see exists. So if I just close this window down here, you can see I have a list of work groups. Now if I create an open group, then I'm going to be able to see, and so is everybody else in the organization, is going to be able to see that it exists on this page here. So a good example is WowHow and Excel Design. They have join buttons. They're going to be open work groups. So I know that they exist. Somebody else has probably created those, and I can request to join. The owner of the work group can then decide whether that's okay for me to join or not, so they can approve or decline that. A private work group, however, is a little bit different. So a private work group, when you create one, nobody else will know that that private work group exists inside Bitrix, other than the people that you invite to it. So a good example of that would be something like creating a private work group space for the marketing department. That would be a good example of that, because nobody else in the organization necessarily wants to be a part of that work group, because anything that's happening inside it is generally not related to them. They're not too fussed about what they're talking about, because obviously they're in their own private work group space for the marketing team. So that's why you would use a private work group. That's probably one of the most common work groups inside Bitrix. And then we have the third type of work group, which is an external work group. So for an external work group, you essentially need to have, I think it does come on one of the commercial packages where you have an extranet. So if you were to create an external work group, and then that would allow you to invite essentially your clients into that work group space. So we do that here at Interface. So we do create external groups for each of our clients who have support with ourselves. We send them an invite and add them to their own external work group space. And then we can chat with them, we can create tasks in there, and communicate with one another inside our portal. So as I say, some of you may not see the external work group option. Maybe if you're on a free cloud, you don't have the extranet. So that's the only one that you wouldn't see. We're not going to go too much into the projects on this session. So the projects is going to be next Tuesday to focus on the projects and tasks element of our remote working series. So that will be next Tuesday at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. So to create a private work group, essentially all we need to do is click on it, and then we can say Bitrix24 remote team. So that we're giving our work group a name. We can upload an icon. So if we upload an icon here, click into there, we can put, I'd always recommend adding an icon. You can see it makes it look a lot nicer when you're looking at the work group page. We have the work group owner. So there's essentially 3 levels of membership inside a work group space. We have the work group owner, we have the moderators. So it might be that I want to add Damien and Jack as a moderator. And then we can include Joe and Laura as members. So the reason why work groups have different levels of membership is essentially you can grant more permissions to a moderator and less permissions essentially to your normal employees. So for example, if you're adding documents into this particular work group space, you can restrict access to documents for maybe the employee level of the group, and you can only allow access to moderators and work group owners. And I'll show you how to do that shortly. If we click on more, then this is where we can switch on and off the features that we want inside this group. So I mentioned that people use these work group spaces for events. If that's the case, then you're generally going to want to have tasks enabled. You're going to want to have a calendar so you can plan when things need to be done by. The drive is the document space inside the work group. Chat is great for obviously collaborating with one another, remote communication. Only these people inside this work group will have access to these features, and that's quite important to reiterate. Conversations is going to be your activity stream, and we'll have a look at that in a moment. And then we also have other features such as photo gallery, we have lists, and then we have a wiki, but what I would recommend actually using is going to be the knowledge base tool, and again we'll have a look at that. And then finally we have the applications. We're not going to look at the applications today, we'll probably touch upon that when we go into the project management side on next week's session. So you can determine who wants to invite users to this particular work group. So I mentioned about the owner, moderators and employees. They're the 3 different levels of membership. So you could have all group members, group owner and moderators, or only the group owner. So that works for this level. You can tag it so they're searchable, and you don't need to specify any work group type because you've already selected the button to create that. So if I click on create group now, what that's going to do, it's going to send the invites out to the members of the work group. So you can see here the moderators have automatically been added, but the 2 members that we invited have been sent an invite. And they'll receive the invite in the little notification tool up in the top right hand corner. So you can see here that this work group space is essentially a home within Bitrix just for the members that you invite into it. And this is why it's perfectly a perfect tool essentially for departments, events, groups of employees, and especially for projects. And again, we'll talk about that next week. But with regards to as soon as you arrive into a work group, you have this space here that you can post out information to the work group members. So again, it's a good communication tool to be using to communicate to the members. So I can say, let's in fact add a title in here. So we can add the little widget in the bottom right hand corner. Welcome to the remote workspace. So we can write a little title, a message. We are posting it to this particular work group. So if you're not in this work group, you'll never see this particular message on here. We can attach files, we can embed links, we can embed videos, we can stylize some of the content within the actual post itself using the quote tool. We can tag other users of the system, we can tag posts, and then we can also record a video which will use your webcam on your computer so you can record a video. So we can put welcome as a particular tag. So if I click on send here, what that's going to do, it's going to post out that message to the work group, and you can see it's quite clear. as soon as the user arrives on here, then they're going to see it on the workgroup activity stream. What's also useful is that not only does it post to the workgroup activity stream, but when you arrive in Bitrix, you will generally, unless you've changed it, you will land on the activity stream homepage of your Bitrix24 system. So if I go into here, and the main activity stream of the whole system generally collates anything that you're involved in, and you can see those communications. And you can see the one that I've just posted out here to the Bitrix24 remote team workgroup. So even though I've posted into a workgroup, because I'm a member of it and because I posted it as well, I will see it on my main activity stream when I log in to Bitrix. So it's not only is it visible in the workgroup, it's a visible site-wide only to the members that are a member of this particular space. So these types of communications are great, obviously, for posting out news, for posting out alerts, for posting out key information to the members of the team. And then the idea with it is that you can communicate with and collaborate with one another. So I mentioned introduce yourself, then we can start saying posting comments, attaching files, and so on and so forth here. So these chains and these chains of communication will obviously expand as you post more and more within the group itself. We can filter out any of the communications within this space on here too. The activity stream in here, you can create quick tasks. You can create polls inside the activity stream for the group. We can just straight send a file. And we can also send appreciation, so it might be that I want to send maybe somebody's birthday to, let's have a look, we have Damien here, and we can maybe call it, so happy birthday. And one thing that Bitrix has done recently, I'll just show you here, if I click on send. One thing that Bitrix has done recently with these appreciations is that it now in your own profile, so if I was to click into my profile here in the top right hand corner, we can see any appreciations that we've been previously given before on here. So not only can you send these appreciations in a workgroup activity stream, you can send the appreciations in the main activity stream too. So I sent that to Damien, so now on Damien's profile, when he logs in, he will have the birthday icon selected on here. And we can see where those appreciations originally came from. So it was a feature request that quite a lot of our clients were having, just so people can get involved and feel like they're participating in the system a little bit more. So that appreciation can be found under the more, and it's also exactly the same in the main activity stream as well. Under the more, fire out an appreciation. So hopefully you can see the activity stream is going to play a key role into collaboration and communication for this particular work group inside Bitrix. We also have tasks. So I mentioned we're not going to go too into detail about the tasks themselves, because we're going to go into that next week's session for the projects and tasks. But you are going to use them for your workgroup spaces, because tasks play a key role in, if we were in Bitrix24 remote team here, we might want to say create a schedule for Bitrix24 live. And then we can write some comments in here, set up tasks and projects. And then in here we can also add checklists. So we can say create screenshots, create example projects. And then what we can do in this is actually assign it to one of the group members. So again, I might want to assign this to Joe here. Joe will then get a notification to say I've created a task for her, and it's going to have a deadline of the 2nd of April at 1 p.m. And then it's automatically going to assign itself to the workgroup Bitrix24 remote team. And now when I create that, you'll be able to see the task list inside the workgroup itself. And again, anybody that's a group member of this particular workgroup will be able to see all the tasks that are currently outstanding for this particular workgroup. It's not restricted in terms of you can't see it if you're not a member of it, like the tasks menu link on the left hand side. In a workgroup's case, by default, everybody can see every task that exists inside the workgroup. If you do want to restrict that, then you can hide tasks if you're not involved in them. And you do so as a workgroup owner by clicking on the Actions button in the top right hand corner and then clicking on Access Permissions. And then you can see in here that when we scroll to task, the permissions to view all tasks, it might be that we only set the group owner to see all tasks. That means if you're not involved in the task in any way, then you're not going to be able to see the task in this particular list. You'll only be able to see your own tasks. So that is how we can show visibility of the tasks list themselves. And again, we'll probably go into a little bit more detail about that in next week's session on the task session and the project session. But these tasks are useful. They are allowing you to give somebody a task, make them responsible for it, set a deadline, and then we can clearly see when these tasks are going to be completed by, and if they ever go overdue, then it's quite clear that we have whoever's responsible has not done the work in time to do that. So tasks play a key role in work groups. We'll go into all these on next week's session. But calendars are specifically for this particular work group here. So if I was to just click into here, and let me just deselect everything in here. So I have some of my shared calendars selected. So what we can do here is workgroup calendars, Bitrix24 remote team, workgroup tasks. So in here, I can create events for this particular work group, and I can assign attendees. So if I wanted to click on add event, then we can say, let's call it Bitrix24 live, and that is going to be on Thursday at 10 a.m. Eastern time, and it's going to be 1 hour, and we can set a time zone if we wanted to. You can see we're on Eastern time there, and then it's going to be, we can add a location, but Bitrix24 YouTube. And then what we can do, add attendees, click on add, and then it might be it usually is myself and Damien on here. You can see when I bring in an attendee, it brings in Damien Edwards into the attendees list, and it also shows if Damien is available, because if Damien had an event booked out, it would actually be marked as red, in the colour red is a block, and it would not allow me to invite Damien to it. It would essentially say how that Damien is booked out. So you can see here, once we send the invite, then we can notify when attendees confirm or decline the invitation. We can give it a description, we can give it an event colour, and we can also select a few others if it's a private event. And if we want to, we can add our CRM items to it. So we can bind these events to a CRM item as well. So let's click on Configure Conference Room A for that one. And again, the good thing with locations, just to point out about this, you can create multiple locations. So if you've got meeting rooms in your office, then you can actually create a location for each meeting room. What that does is it gives each meeting room a calendar, and if people have already booked out that particular room, then you can see in here, in this case it hasn't, but if somebody had booked it out, we would have to reschedule this particular meeting or change which room that we're going to attend into. So that is another useful feature, and one that we get commonly asked for and asked about. So if we click on save, what that will then do is you can see here we have the Bitrix24 event on here. Click into it and you can see who's attending, what time. We can click on open, and if we did put a description in here, it would be displayed in here too. Damien will also receive an invite, and again it will go through his notification center up in the top right hand corner, and he can choose whether to decline or accept that particular event. So it's very good for scheduling for this particular group of individuals who are a member of this particular group. And you can see above we have create a schedule for Bitrix24 live. That's the task. And that's only showing because if we click into calendars, we have work group tasks selected. If we were to deselect that, then it would not show the tasks that you're part of within the calendar itself. So it's all preference really on how you want to work inside the particular calendar. So again, just to point out, if you did want to then show your calendar in the main calendar section on the left hand side, you can do so by clicking on calendars, and then in the top right hand corner, if we click on down, click on work group calendars, I can then find the calendar for the Bitrix24 remote team here. So the work group that I've just created. What that will then do is if I click on save, and then I think I need to click back into calendars, and for some reason it's not there, I don't think, unless I can't see it. Let me just double check. Oh, there we go. Need to select this box here. So if we ensure we click on this, click on save, that will then ensure that it's been added, and you can now see that the calendar is overlaid on a green. So when we created the event, it was green, and the calendar is also green as well. I think we can change that actually on here if we, in fact we would need to do it from the work group side. So when we created the event, it was green. So hi Rohit, how are you? Yeah, I'm good, thank you. Hope you are well. Just got a message through on YouTube. If you do have any questions, please put them in the box on YouTube, and I can answer them as we go along. We've only got a couple more features inside the work group itself. So another space inside the work group that is solely for this particular group is the drive. Now the drive is obviously a fantastic tool to store the assets for this particular group. So for remote working, we might want to, I don't know, upload anything from recordings. If we're doing this particular live session, we're going to have a recording. What you can do is obviously you can click on add. Maybe we want to add a folder, and we'll call it recordings in here. So if we click on recordings, click on create, and then we're going to have a recordings folder. Obviously, if we click into that now, we can then add a particular file, and then if we wanted to upload our icon, I don't have too many files on this particular computer, but you can see in here that's how we start necessarily to build up a file and folder structure inside Bitrix. Now there's a couple of points just to point out in here is obviously if you want to assign permissions on the drive itself, then you can do so. And as I mentioned right at the beginning, when you create a work group, you have a work group owner, you have work group moderators and members. This is the reason why you just decide who is at what particular level, because you can then assign the permissions to files and folders. If we didn't want any normal group members to access the drive, we could just take them off this particular area. What we can do as well is if we just click on cancel here and just go to this folder, you'll see that there's no access permissions that I can define on a folder or by folder basis or on a file basis. If we go back into the assign permissions area, check this box, then now what we should be able to see when it refreshes is the ability to assign permissions on folders and files. So it might be that we don't want any group members to see this particular file. Only the owner and moderator will therefore see the recordings folder. And you can put permissions on for individuals in there. So if I wanted to add a particular individual, so maybe I only wanted Joe to see it, then I can click in here and I can click Joe Smith, and then I can give Joe Smith the ability to see the folder, or I can give full access, ability to edit, upload into it, and so on and so forth. So you can extend those permissions as much as you wish. And what I'm showing you here is very common throughout the Bitrix24 Drive module. It's not just for work groups. What I'm showing you here is if you were to create a folder and file structure inside your Bitrix24 Drive, then exactly the same permissions and it's exactly the same method you would apply to that as well. What we can also do is we can decide how we want to work with documents. So on Bitrix, you can use Google Docs or Office 365 to edit the documents. In that case, you would just select this and then use the tools. So we use Google Docs to edit our documents. Furthermore, if you're using the desktop application and you want to edit documents locally, then all you need to do, download the desktop app, log into the desktop app, and then when you click on a Word document or an Excel document, what it's going to do is it's going to just go via the desktop application and allow you to work on that particular document locally. So again, for this style of remote working that everybody is currently, well, most people are currently involved in at the moment, especially in the cloud, if you're using Google Docs, you can take advantage of that collaboration with that particular document. So it's a very handy tool to be using inside Bitrix. So with regards to chat's a great tool to have obviously inside a particular group. You have a tool to communicate with one another. Everybody inside the group itself has access. So if I put hello team, we can send a message out here. Everybody within the group is going to be notified. Their chat will then appear in the little chat. You can see I've got a chat icon now, my Bitrix24 icon. You can click into it and open it up. We also have the ability to have video calls and voice calls as well inside this particular workgroup space. So again, fantastic for remote working. You can have up to 10 users to chat on video and voice call now in the Bitrix24 cloud. So it's again, if you had 10 people involved in this particular workgroup space, you can have a video or voice call, or just use the instant messenger, whichever's your preferred method of talking with one another. But if you go over the 10, all that will happen is you can still use the instant messenger tool. It will just mean that you will no longer have the video and voice call icon in the top right hand corner. That will just disappear. The Conversations is the tool that provides you with the activity stream. We can have photos here, so we can upload new photo albums and upload our own photos. You can see it's quite straightforward. I can create a new album here, give it a name. So I can say icons, click on save, and then you can see in here I can upload photos to this particular, and then I would click on here and then say I don't have too many images within this, but you can see upload, and then you can start having a photo album. It will give you thumbnails of each individual picture within this album. and then we can create multiple albums to store those. It depends whether you want to do it this way or you want to upload those files inside the drive itself. It's completely up to you. Every feature that I've gone through so far, you don't have to switch on by any means. Or the minimum I would definitely say is to always have conversations on, because conversations is going to give you the ability to have an activity stream in the work group. So if all you wanted was a communication space inside here to work with your team, communicate with your team, then just have the feature for conversations switched on. That would be all you would essentially need. And obviously then chat comes into the communication side too. We have lists. So a list is just the ability essentially to create a form with a variable amount of fields in it, the information you need the user to provide, and then we can perform maybe a workflow on that particular submission, and then it stores it within a grid. An option of this would be to say expenses. So if I give the list a name, if we just change the title from elements to expenses, and then if I copy that, paste it into here, and then if we just change each word element, it just changes the language to match what you are creating the list for, essentially. So we can create here, and we can give access to the list itself. So if I click on save, that will create as a brand new list. So you can see here, I'm on the menu item list, click into expenses. Now what we can see is going to be a table of data. The first thing you need to do, click on customize fields here. We can change this, so we always need the first field that it provides. So we'll just rename it to expense name. And then we can add a couple more fields if we want to in here. So we could say value, and maybe we want that to be money. It's going to be in dollars. So we save a value, and then we could add a field for status. And maybe for the status, what we will do is we will have a list. And what we want though is to show in new item form. We don't want the ability to update the status in here. So click on status, click on list. So approve, we can say pending, approved, or declined. Default value, in fact we have to click apply first, and then default value we can say is going to be pending. So if we click on save, we'll just create those three fields at the moment, just to give you an idea of how it's going to look. We can just remove the sections here. So we've got expense name, value, and status. Then if we wanted to add a new expense, we can say lunch, and then we can say 100, and we can choose what currency. Click on save, and you can see here that we have the expense name is lunch, the value is $100, and the status is pending. Now we can trigger workflows off this. So if I just quickly go into and just show you what it's capable of, then we'll create a sequential business process, and we'll just call it approval when added. So when a new approval request comes in, I'll just do a very simple one. So we click in approve element in here, and then approving voters. This is the person who is going to approve the expense, and then approve expense, and then so this is what this Matt Smith is going to receive once a new expense has been submitted. We could say expense name, and then in the three dots to the right hand side, if you just click on it, then we can scroll down and find expense name. So that's going to give us what the person submits, and we will say value. And we should be able to see value here. And maybe if we click on submitter, we'll be able to click on the three dots again and click on created by and have it printable, created by name. So we'll be able to know who submits this. We don't need a status message. Accept or refuse, you can rename that if you wanted to. If you wanted to write a comment, you can put comment only when declined, so you can actually pass that comment back to the user. So we'll leave that in. You might want to say reasons why declined. Okay, so that's the approval block. What we can do there is then maybe send a notification. So if we click on here, click on the three dots, and then we'll say it's going to be sent by Max Smith. The recipient is going to be the person who created it, so the person who submitted the expense. Just to point out that all this is being recorded as well, so if you do need to pop back on and look at what's being done, you can do. It'll be available on the Bitrix24 YouTube channel. So we can send a notification to when it's approved. And what we can also do is use modify element. And what modify element allows you to do is it allows you to update a field. So we will update the status field to be approved. And we'll just make sure we label that. Just so we can see what it does in here. And then obviously, if you wanted to, you can do exactly the same thing. You can send a notification if it got declined, and you can also update the status if it got declined as well. So we could say status is equal declined, and then we'll put. So you can see here what it does is the expense gets submitted using that form. It then gets sent to Max Smith to approve. If it's declined, the status will get updated to declined. If it gets approved, it will send a notification out and it will update the status to approved. So let's test that and just show you how that works. So if we click back to expenses here and then click on add expense, and then we will say travel, it's going to be $1,000. Obviously you can create as many form fields as you like here. I've only created 2. What that will then do, I probably should send a notification to Max first of all, but you can see here in the bottom left hand corner we have workflows. So I click on workflows here, and you can see that I have already approve expense, which is the assignment name I gave it. The expense name is travel, which is what I submitted in that form a moment ago. The value is $1,000 and the submitter is Max Smith, and that's the email of Max Smith. So if I click on start, what I can do then is any reasons why I declined. So if I was to click on refuse, this would be required, but alternatively, if I click on accept, it will now drop out of my workflow tasks. You can see it's disappeared. And if I go back into the work group, Bitrix24 remote team, and go into the lists, we should hopefully see that the expense has had an approved status. So you can obviously do a lot more to that. That's a very simple and very straightforward way of doing it. But from that, you can obviously export it if you wanted to. You can export to Excel. You can have multiple approvals and so on and so forth. So that's a list module. You might think of different tools that you might want to use that for. And then finally, we have the knowledge base. So a knowledge base now is replacing the wiki. So essentially what you can do is you can create a knowledge base solely for your workgroup space articles. If you've been using the sites module, then you will be familiar with the concept of how this works. It uses the building block tool and easily, so if I clicked on create here, and that will then use this template to create a knowledge base. And then if I come out of here and click on knowledge base, we should be able to see the knowledge base I've just created. So it gives you the flexibility to create articles, and these are all searchable. So they're all searchable articles in here. You click and type something, it will pull up. And it's a great tool to be able to store, especially for work groups, because if you've got a marketing work group, as I say, or a remote team, how I say, then you will be able to see clearly articles solely related around that subject. So we do focus on that a little bit more in the sites webinar. So we have a webinar every Monday at 11 a.m. Eastern time. But hopefully that's helped you understand a little bit more about work groups and how you can use them for collaborating. They are a great tool for remote working. Like I say, you can use all the tools inside there. Next week on Tuesday at 10 a.m. Eastern time, we're going to focus a little bit more on work groups, but actually using them for the project management side. So please do check that session out. But hopefully, again, you found that useful. Those are our details. If you are interested in anything towards Bitrix, so if you're looking at purchasing it, please get in touch with us. We can offer you some pre-sale support. If you're looking at getting some support or training, we also offer those services as well. We are Interface. We are gold partners of Bitrix24. So hopefully that's all good. Thank you very much for your time today, and we've got the next live session covering anything that you would like to cover on Bitrix on Thursday at 10 a.m. Eastern time. So thanks again, and bye for now.